Anthony Strait and Jay Kaplan are here with me. I'm Stephen Rabinowitz, and they have told me on many occasions before Ryan Clark told Peter Schrager that he didn't play the game, so he doesn't know as much. That these guys have told me because if they were playing NFL football back in the day, and I wasn't, it makes everything different. So, athletes, have you ever pulled a James Hudson of the Giants and been penalized 4 times on one drive?
No, because being a quarterback, I was never in that position, and any quarterback who loses his
Have you ever
emotion
seen
like
it?
that, never.
I don't think you've ever
Look,
seen that.
No, I
and
mean,
look,
I gotta tell you, I have seen, young players in the NFL, commit penalties out of frustration and, emotion, for whatever reason. But four on the same drive, practically back to back to back to back. No, I've never seen that. I don't know. I haven't. Ant, what about you?
Rabbi, you and I was at college together when Joe Gardner was coaching the Hofstra Pride, and we both know his personality. Hudson wouldn't have made it out of the locker room at halftime if he committed 4 turnovers on one series. I mean, look, I made the joke the other day. I was like, okay, if that was Tom Coughlin, he's cut after the game. If that's
Oh
Bill
yeah.
Parcells, he's
Oh
cut after the
yeah.
first quarter. I mean, there's just no way you could be that undisciplined. And I hope Brian Day will pull to the side and talk to him like, dude, you do that again, you know I'm on the team. Like you cannot cost hurt the team that bad. 4 penalties on one drive. It's just insane. Everybody me look, it's not Seattle Seahawks false start 15 times in the game level, but still, this is just outrageous for
Oh
Most
one
yeah.
most
player.
And
most
spoiler alert, I will reference this in my Giants and when we get to our Giants segment because the what his penalties created in terms of that Giants drive kind of blew my mind.
All right, so next time I'm just going to ask for quick words instead of 2 monologues to begin the show.
To
All
me,
right.
no.
Hey, you
Yeah,
Never
started
I
it.
should.
know
No,
this.
that's
I
never
know,
happened to
but I
me.
should have said quick words. My fault. I'm non-athlete Stephen Rabinowitz, and this is the On the Sports Lines Hunt for October edition. Sean Connery can't kill you for this hunt for Red October, and Alec Baldwin can't save you. Man, did that change in 35 years. We'll get you ready for one of the biggest months on the sports calendar as we discuss the MLB wildcard situation, the Giants and Jets dire-ish situation. It's only 0-2, and the rest of the NFL as we are 1/9 of the way through the season. That, my friends, is 11.1%. YouTube.com/slash on the sports lines and Facebook.com/slash on the sports lines. Play the percentages. Subscribe to both today. That's 100% satisfaction guaranteed. The AL wildcard is crazy as the Blue Jays and Tigers are looking in some order as the top 2 seeds in the upcoming postseason. The Yankees, Red Sox, and I wanted to say the triumvirate of the Mariners, Astros, and Rangers, but it's going to look like it's going to be the Mariners and Astros, or they're kind of all fighting for position in the wild card. One will be champion, one will be playing the Yankees or the other team in the AL West in that wild card series. So we're going to talk about the 4 teams in question: Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners, and Astros, as we find out what to watch for as we look at the final 10 days of this regular season, which includes tonight. The Yankees just won 7-0. The only time, as I said, you'll ever see a touchdown by a New York team in Baltimore, probably playing in any way,
Oh,
shape, or form. Jake, kick the extra point and let me know what the Yankees are looking for as they try to get back into the postseason to defend their 2024 AL title.
yeah, it's gonna for me. It's gonna be how Aaron Boone handles the shortstop position. Look, we all know that the glaring issue for the Yankees as they look to secure the number one wild card position and home field for that series is the inconsistency of their bullpen. Pretty much, other than David Bednar, I'm sure Boone will spend the next 10 games seeing who can and can't be trusted come October. It's an issue we've spilled plenty of digital ink for on this show, and I'm sure we'll do it again when we preview the wild card series. That being said, the intriguing thing that I'm going to be watching as we wrap up the regular season is just how much Jose Caballero plays shortstop as compared to Anthony Volpe. Boone has been a staunch supporter of Volpe despite the numbers. And yes, it seems like Volpe hasn't been 100% healthy for a bit now. But since July, those numbers, both basic and advanced in hitting and fielding, indicate that he's not a starting caliber Major League Baseball shortstop. Here are those numbers. In 60 games between July 1 and 9/16, across 225 plate appearances, 212 at-bats, Volpe has a 179, 211, 373 slash line with a 583 OPS. Does have 10 homers, 7 of them in July, 27 ribbies, 26 runs scored, and unlike teammate Ben Rice, who has been the victim of some bad luck when he puts the ball in play, Volpe's batting average on balls put in play is 189. That's just 10 points higher than his actual batting average in this span. Overall, for the season, his slash line is 208, 271, 363. That's a 667 OPS. He's shown some pop, 30 doubles, 4 triples, 19 homers, and his 71 RBI are tied for 4th on the team with Trent Grisham. And he's one of 6 Yankees with at least 200 total bases, but he's a below average major league hitter by whichever metric you prefer. Baseball Reference's RBAT Plus has him at 80. Fangraph's weighted runs created plus has him at 83. The baseline for both metrics is 100. The former Gold Glover has had his defensive issues this season as well, ranking 21st out of 22 qualified shortstops in outs above average, -9, while defensive runs saved has him ranked 10th out of 22, 1. Want a simple defensive stat? His 19 errors, 6 with the glove, 13 with the arm, put him 20th out of 22 qualified shortstops in Major League Baseball. And still, it took until the Red Sox series last week for Boone to give Volpe some extended bench time. He's only started 7 of the Yankees' 15 September games, 8 of 16 counting tonight. Which brings us to Jose Caballero, who Boone refers to as his 10th man due to his ability to play almost everywhere, who has 8 starts at shortstop this month, 6 in a row from September 10 through 15 across 2 full series with Boston and Detroit. He had a 350, 381, 650 slash line with a 1031 OPS in those 6 games. 4 of his 7 hits went for extra bases. His batting average on balls in play, 462. He's played 11 games overall at shortstop since joining the Yankees at the deadline. He has a slash line of 250, 282, 417, a 699 OPS, and a weighted runs created plus of 90. All of that is below average. All of that is better than Volpe. When he puts the ball in play, he's a 308 hitter. Oh, and he's the Major League Baseball leader in stolen bases with 48. He's only been caught 10 times. He's 14 of 16 in steals as a Yankee, and he's a big reason why the Yankees have been running more as a team since he arrived. Is it possible Volpe flips a switch come October like he did last year when he put up a 286, 407, 408 slash line for an 815 OPS with a homer, 6 RBI, 10 runs scored, and 5 steals, with a 371 batting average on balls put in play in the 14 games in the postseason across 59 plate appearances and 49 at-bats? Sure, but there's no way to know until they get there. And so far, Caballero has given the Yankees more offense, better base running, while being as good, if not better, by some metrics with the glove at shortstop. Boone said a while ago that it's all hands on deck with this push for the playoffs. If that's truly the case, then by both the numbers and even the eye test, Jose Caballero needs to be at shortstop as much as possible for the remaining 10 games, and maybe even into October.
208 average, as mentioned in that shortstop, and 19 errors. By the way, this is a stat that they showed on the broadcast tonight of the Fox game. And then also Caballero's 11 starts at shortstop have been pretty impressive, and it just brings a different dynamic to a team. Yeah. It's almost like the Ben Zobrist of this team, minus a few things out there. Zobrist was an everyday good utility player. Caballero is standard, but is pretty much like the straw that stirs a very, very expensive drink in the Bronx. All right, let's move on to the Red Sox, Anthony. They've had some ups, they've had some downs. They lost 2 or 3 last week into the Yankees. They're likely going to be the 5th or 6th seed when we get into the postseason in about a week and a half. What are you watching for as they try to improve their positioning?
Well, the Cleveland Guardians, who's red hot as of late, has something to say about that.
Yes, they can win by the way, they can win the division too. I think they might have, outside of the AL West, the smallest division margin right now is them at 3.5 after their sweep of the Tigers.
Yeah, and on top of that, what I'm looking for in Boston is, can they generate enough offense? I think that's what it is with the Red Sox issues, run production. And for the month of September thus far, it hasn't been that great. I mean, Anthony's been on the lineup, and with him, they were averaging just above 4 runs a game, and without him, it's been even worse. They've been held to 1 run in three of the 10 in the previous 10 games since Anthony's injury. You mentioned they dropped 2 or 3 to the Yankees. He dropped 2 or 3 to Oakland. I mean, to the formerly Oakland Athletics. They lost this afternoon 5-3. So they have a lot of issues as far as generating some offense. And um, one of the biggest drop offs for Boston has been the ability to kind of work the count and try to get favor and try to get on base. 296 OBP over previous 10 games coming into this week, which is 23rd in baseball, 6.5% walk rate. And also, everybody, the big guys across the lineup is kind of struggling. Alex Bregman is batting just above the Mendoza line for the month. Jaron Duran is just above the Mendoza line himself, 227. Cedar Rafaela was coming into this week, batting 105 for the month of September. This is
Oof.
a team that, and by the way, Wally Abreu is out until who knows, early October if they get that far, because right now the Red Sox need to get back to the bases. They're gonna have to go to good old fashioned American League small ball baseball and try to get on base, try to be more aggressive, steal in, try to bunt guys over, and just do the little things. Because right when you and obviously we'll talk about the Mets in the National League segment as far as teams that have inconsistent run support. When you're struggling this badly, you gotta figure out a way to get runs. And the Sox have the Sox they're they're not getting the pitching the pitching that they need right about now, and they're not getting the runs, and that's put them in a vulnerable position to fall out of the wild card spot altogether. Right now, they're literally just a game and a half above Cleveland for that final wild card, and it's a precarious situation, and if the Sox want to get in, they're gonna have to turn it up a little bit, especially with the bat.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things. I don't know what team. I picked this team to make it to the World Series earlier this year, and I really have no reason to determine what team Boston's going to be. I really have no reason to determine what team anybody in the American League is going to be because I don't trust anybody. And speaking of teams I don't trust, the Seattle Houston triumvirate right now in the American League West is a little dicey. I expect both of these teams to make the playoffs. If there's a team that can be knocked out, Anthony said it best. It is Boston, although Seattle and Houston are playing each other for 3 this weekend. But Cal Raleigh is obviously the answer for the Seattle Mariners. He's always going to be the answer for the Seattle Mariners. 55th and 56 home runs hit in on this past Tuesday. That's the most ever for a switch hitter, passing the Mick in 1961, which is just insane, and is now tied for the most in Mariners history over Ken Griffey Jr. Playing catcher is a very huge position out there, and he is one of the best ever to do it right now, slugging as a catcher in this season. Now, you're not going to catch Bonds, and then the real Bonds' record of 73. The real question is, can he catch Judge's 62? And while you're doing this, if you have the single most important series coming up this weekend, and we know we're not talking about a matchup to watch, but the matchup with the Astros is going to be the hugest one to determine where both teams are going to be placed. Now, the Astros, third fewest intentional walks this year. So you're not going to see Cal Raleigh get a lot of balls to hit. He is going to get the Judge treatment in this series because he has earned the Judge treatment in this series. Not going to show up in big spots. He's been walked 8 times in his last 6 games, 11 times in his last 10 games. Most of them essentially intentional, even if they haven't actually said it. So it's just a question of if Cal Raleigh can adjust, and it seems like in some of the cases, can he adjust to having less opportunities to put one over the wall, which he does best, and can he lead this team to the playoffs? Now, on the other side of the ball, the Astros, they need that hitter that's Cal Raleigh because Yordan Alvarez is now on the IL. 6 home runs and 797 OPS over just 199 plate appearances this season. was tearing the cover off of the ball before the injury. And now you can have a lot of people out there. You're going to have to put a lot of people in that possible DH position. You have rookie Zach Cole. You have the ageless wonder Jose Altuve. You have a guy who is a lifetime 294 postseason hitter that you might be losing for the postseason. You have 34 home runs, 31 doubles, 96 RBIs, and 958 OPS in just his playoff runs from 2021 to 2024. So the question is, especially they just barely outscored their opponents by 7 in September, 119 to 112 as of Wednesday. Don't have their third baseman either. The Astros do it as a Paredes. And you have people on that lineup. Like, it's surprising that the Astros are where they are, considering the fact that Carlos Correa's return to Houston has been like both sequels. You think it's going to be really good, and then you immediately get disappointed the moment when the movie actually starts. And Christian Walker hasn't been the greatest replacement for some of the other free agents that left this team in the offseason, like Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker. So we're going to see what this team does down the stretch, but I think Seattle and Houston are going to be interesting opponents for whoever plays them. Could be the Yankees, could be each other, but we'll see how it goes, because in this postseason, anything can happen. I'm very interested to see what this series could bring out of both of these teams. Seattle looks like they're on the rise. Houston looks like they're kind of on the decline.
Rabbi, I'll say this. The only scenario I really don't want to see happen, and hopefully I'm not jinxing it by saying out loud, I just don't want the Yankees to be playing the Red Sox. As much as I love that rivalry, as much as having it in the postseason is awesome for baseball, the Yankees have not played well against Boston. They played, better of late, but I'd rather not play them.
Let me say this. I'd rather not play Garrett Crochet in a game one because that could take out Max Fried.
Fair enough.
Anthony, anything to say before we move on?
Well, I was going to say, for whatever reason, I think when the Red Sox see the outside Yankee Stadium, like a light bulb goes on in their head.
Switch gets
the light switch definitely gets split. But yeah, I think of the teams that's out there, the Red Sox are the most dangerous because of the familiarity. You see this team 18 times this season. There's some surprises. I'm going to take my chances with one of the AL Central teams that's left over, or even a Seattle Mariners team that might not have the experience that the Yankees have all combined. So it's a pick your point.
Or a depleted, a less than 100% Houston Astros team now that Alvarez is out.
Just note though, it's still the Astros and the Yankees in the postseason. It's never a good combination.
I know.
Until it actually becomes
slightly better with them not having Alvarez because he kills us.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. No matter how it shakes out.
Yes. This next one is an actual wild card race. In the NL, there is a race to the top for the third wild card spot. We're considering the fact that the mid-80s will be your winning point for this. It's likely a race to the mid. The Mets lead for that spot, but the Reds, Giants, Diamondbacks are lurking. I heard that the Taiwan Little League World Series champs also have a possibility of taking that spot as well.
Nice.
Anthony, the pain of the New York Mets. We've talked about it many of the times. They are winners of three out of their last 4. They're still here. They still lead by 2 games over the Arizona Diamondbacks. But what are you watching as their key as they try to take this home?
And by the way, I'm not going to award that 2-game lead, FYI. It's hard to believe this team was 45-24 back on June 12th. And then Kodai Singers gets hurt, and then it just seemed like that team was not the same after that. What I'm looking for is, can Carlos Mendoza muscle together enough pitching to get the Mets over the finish line? I think that's what the main thing is. Since before June 12th, through June 12th, the starting pitching was 2.79 ERA, which is actually tops in the majors. And since June 12th, the starting rotation's ERA has been 5.09, which is 24th in the league. And it's got to the point where they're now relying on not one, not two, but three rookies they have called up in the last month who have actually turned out to be the best pitchers in the rotation. Cordon Singer is down to minors. By the way, did not pitch well in an assignment tonight. Gave up 4 runs in 3 innings.
Oh.
Yeah. You think about, and David Peterson, he started the game last night that I was in. Uh, allowed the big inning to catch him once again. Manny Machado hit a grand slam. His ERA has been above 5 the last few months. Clay Holmes, who was the head scratcher, has actually pitched well, except that when the bullpen gets in, they've been able to have been able to hold a lead. Now the three pitchers, Jonathan, shout out, kudos to him, because I was there last Friday when he got lit up in the first inning. And for a 22-year-old, you wonder how he would bounce back this afternoon. Pitched well, gave 5 strong innings, allowed 1 run. Nolan McLean has been another one, and Brandon Sporer. They've been the Mets' best pitchers in that rotation, and it has gotten to the point where we're relying on 3 guys that was in the minors just 2 months ago to try to carry you into the division, to the wild card round. You gotta believe McLean will start game 1 if the Mets get to the wild card, because he's been phenomenal. He's gotten the Jacob deGrom treatment with a lack of run support in a couple of his starts, but he's given the Mets a chance to at least go out and win a game, which a lot of for the good part of the last 2 months that has not been the case. Now, when the Mets have had a lead, either the starters have blown it or the bullpen has fallen apart. The bullpen ERA was 2.82, second in the major since through June 12th. Since then, 5.04 ERA, which is 26. Think about this. They traded for Ryan Helsley, and he has been a flat-out disaster.
It's been awful.
He's been awful for the Mets. Gregory Soho has been decent, and Tyler Rogers has actually been decent. Even Edward Diaz has struggled. Over the weekend, he blew a lead in one game against Texas. Barely got out of a bases loaded jam the next day. So right now, it has just been a case of throwing anything at the wall and hoping it sticks. The Mets pitching plans have really blown up in our faces this season as far as what David Stones is aiming for. You think about guys like Griffin Cannon that got hurt. Tyler McGill went down with the injuries, with an injury. Singer's inconsistency. Sean Manaea is pretty much now piggybacking Clay Holmes starts. And he's been hurt and inconsistent since he's come back. It's like the worst nightmare for the Mets. When we talked about it in the spring training, the preview show, that the Mets pitching was surprisingly doing good, but we didn't think it would hold up this long. We just also didn't think it would be this bad due to the injuries and inconsistencies. So what I'm looking for just the last 10 games is who's going to be that guy who steps up and at least could be an ace for this team for the next 10 games, because you got their schedule. They got after the Washington, they got Chicago. That's still playing to lock up the number 4 spot, which will give them home field. They got the Marlins to end the season. For whatever reason, historically, the Mets do not play well against Miami. So
2007, take a look back, kids.
Yeah, 2007, 2008, by the way. You got to throw that one in. And by the way, just 3 years ago, the Mets dropped a key game in Miami that eventually cost them a division title when the Braves caught them. So right now, the pitching has been bad, but the Mets are still in the driver's seat. They got a 2-game lead, and they could kind of control their own destiny right now as far as winning out. The match number is 8. And if you're a Mets fan and watch this team, there's no confidence that the Mets can will off 8 wins, let alone any combination of 8 wins to get them across the finish line. So it's going to have to be the pitching. It's going to have to rely on these 3 young guys who have just been the better pitchers, and whatever the bullpen can actually give them as far as just being able to get outs. But they're going to have to rely on scoring runs too. And I don't know if this Mets offense is consistent enough to score 6-7 runs a game like we saw in the month of August, when they will actually carry the team, and the pitchers just get a whole lead. So oh, it's gonna be a stressful 10 days for the Metropolitans, just because this team has been so up and down. We don't know what Met team shows up on a given afternoon or a given night, for that matter.
Anthony, stressful days, as Top would say, and then some.
Yeah,
It's funny just because of the fact that I have more confidence in the Mets finishing us off, but it's not because of them. It's because of who's below them and the inconsistencies of who's been trying to chase them. I feel like better teams would have taken advantage of this last month and at least made the Mets chase them. Speaking of, we're going to be talking about those teams right now. Jay, we
Yep.
had to switch you over from the Reds, who did win tonight in a one-hit shutout against the Cubs. They're still not mathematically in it, but roughly in it. But the
Roughly.
Diamondbacks have been raking,
Yep.
and they have a bunch of good players that can kind of go. Didn't this team rebuild at midseason, if I recall correctly?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. At the end of July, the Diamondbacks were 51 and 58, 12 games out of first place in the National League West. The next day, August 1st, they lost for the sixth straight time, fell a season high 13 games back of the Dodgers. At that point, they were also 10 games out of the third National League wildcard spot, with the Padres and Giants among the 5 teams ahead of them. To say they were an afterthought was an understatement. But from August 2nd through September 17, they've gone 26 and 17. That's a 605 winning percentage, which means they've played like a 98 win team, and they've made up 8.5 games in the National League wildcard race, and now sit 1.5 games behind the Mets for the third and final playoff spot. After taking 2 of 3 from the Giants, they'll end the regular season with a 6-game, 7-day homestand against the Phillies and the Dodgers, followed by 3 games in San Diego against the Padres. The Phillies have practically nothing to play for. They've clinched the National League East. They lead the Mets by 13 games and have a 7-game lead on the Dodgers for the NL's number 2 seed. The Dodgers and Padres are still battling for the NL West as LA leads San Diego by 1.5. By all rights, Arizona should not be in this race. They lost their number 1 starter, Corbin Burnes, on June 2nd, along with relievers A.J. Puke, April 13th, Justin Martinez, June 10th, and left fielder Lourdes Gurriel, September 2, all to season-ending injuries. They were big sellers at the trade deadline. They sent out starter Merrill Kelly, third baseman Eugenio Suarez, first baseman Josh Naylor, outfielder Randall Grichuk, and injured reliever Shelby Miller. And yet, they're making the same kind of late season charge they did in 2023 when they finished the regular season 27 and 19, then knocked off the Brewers, the Dodgers, and the Phillies in the National League playoffs to reach the World Series. Shortstop Geraldo Perdomo, second baseman Ketel Marte, and right fielder Corbin Carroll, the top 3 hitters in the Diamondbacks lineup, are among the best players in the game. Marte and Carroll made the National League All-Star team, and they've been the driving forces of the offense. Check out some of these numbers. Marte had a ridiculous first half. 290, 394, 567 slash line, 961 OPS, 19 homers, 40 RBI, 52 runs scored. It's kind of come back to earth since the All-Star break, just 263, 352, 416 slash line, 767 OPS, only 6 homers, 26 RBI, 27 runs scored. But he is still second on the team in home runs with 25, and his 66 RBIs are 4th. Carroll, since August 1, over 43 games across 192 plate appearances, 163 at-bats. He's put up a 282, 380, 540 slash line, 920 OPS, 9 homers, 27 RBI, 34 runs scored, and 15 steals. Overall, he has a 258, 339, 542 slash line, 881 OPS. He leads the team in doubles with 30, triples with 16. That number leads all of Major League Baseball. He also leads the team 30 homers, 28 steals, 103 runs scored. His 77 RBI are second. And then there's Perdomo. Since July 1, over 68 games across 307 plate appearances and 250 at-bats, he's put up a 324, 436, 520 slash line, and 956 OPS, 10 homers, 39 RBI, 48 runs scored, 13 steals. Overall, he has a 290, 393, 463 slash line, 856 OPS, 19 homers, and a team-leading 97 runs batted in. His 94 runs scored and 26 steals are second. Manager Torey Lovullo says Perdomo has literally taken over the team during this stretch. He's ranking number 1 among National League position players in Baseball Reference's wins above replacement, and number 3 in Fangraphs wins above replacement. Add to that the run that rotation stalwart Zach Gallen has been on after being on the trading block, but ultimately not getting dealt at the deadline. GM Mike Hazen said that while plenty of teams called asking about Gallen, no deal was ever remotely close. Hazen had a price in mind for him, but teams were hoping to capitalize on what was Gallen's less than usual all-star level of production at that point. He was 7-12 with a 5.60 ERA. Hazen told him to kick rocks. And since the start of August, across 9 starts in 53 2/3 innings pitched, 5-2, team went 6-3, 2.68 ERA, a 1.006 WHIP, 3-1 strikeouts to walk ratio, and he's held opposing hitters to a 202, 254, 348 slash line and a 602 OPS. Look, these next 10 games are going to be a gauntlet, but if any team knows how to make this kind of run to nab a playoff spot after previously being written off, it's the Diamondbacks.
One thing we need to talk about that'll be interesting, which we'll kind of maybe get into in our next show, is the fact that the Dodgers, who have never been really good in these like short series, are going to have to host a wild card series for the first time since they installed the wild card series, and I don't know what to expect. So the 6th seed has a shot in this situation. Speaking of, the Giants still are in that hunt, and my question for them is their pitching. It's really good in their top 3. In fact, I love their top 3 is possibly 3 of the more consistent 1, 2, 3 starters in the game. You have Robbie Ray, who was a Cy Young Award winner just a few years ago. He's been solid this year with a 3.5 ERA. His Ks are awesome, top 20 in the league. His WHIP is top 20. He's 11-7. He looks good. He's your number 1 and 2 starter. Logan Webb, about the same thing. 14 wins. That's tied for 5th. He has 200 Ks this season, 206 to be exact. And you know what he's getting? He has a 3.34 ERA. The ageless one, Justin Verlander, who said today that he will like to pitch his age 43 season next year. And why not? He's had 5 pretty much good consecutive starts since late August. 2 earned runs in the game against the Cubs. Baltimore, no earned runs. He's had 4 starts in a row, which have included playoff teams like LA and Arizona, who they're going after, and where he's given up no earned runs or 1 earned run, and has pitched a qualified game, 5 innings or more in each of those games, 7 innings in his last 2 outings. By the way, 3-10. How the hell are we getting 3-10 out of those stats? I guess it's punishment for all of the good things Verlander has done in his career. You got to pay the devil your due when you have paid up as your wife eventually and go out of your league. Okay. However, I would like to say this. You need 5 starters in a pennant race, and the fact that this weekend versus the Dodgers, they have Ray pitching tonight. They have Webb pitching tomorrow, but he's pitching against Clayton Kershaw in what will probably be his final start of his legendary career. If you don't know, he announced he will retire at the end of the season today, and he may not even be on the postseason roster because they have enough efficient starting. And then they have America's favorite pitcher, TBD, for Saturday and Sunday. We love TBD there. TBD, you had so many options and it just not done the job. K-Wong Tang, Carson Seymour, who started that in a few games, Carson Wisenhunt, Tristan Beck. And then after that, and by the way, Logan Webb is the one going tonight against Yamamoto. So good luck on that one. And then you have a possibility. There's rumors that they're going to take Anthony DeSclafani, who was a Diamondback pitcher just last week, and he had a 5.12 ERA. They have to plug and play in about 4 to 6 more starts on the way to getting this spot. And despite the good hitting, despite the pitching, despite the fact that the Giants, who were awful pretty much in that same stretch that the Mets have been awful, they were in those wild card races and then pretty much tailed off for about 3 months. The Giants are in it. So you just are 3/5 of the way there to getting a effective team into the postseason. We'll see what happens. Like I said before, good. If there were a good team out there, the Mets would have been passed already. The reason why the Mets had those choke jobs, sorry, in 2007 and 2008 was because the Phillies were there to pick up the pieces. There's no one there right now that has the hands or opposable thumbs to pick up the pieces for the Mets' kind of rough run over the second half of the season. At
Let me tell you, that Sunday night game when they were in San Francisco back in late July,
that
you
was the
pretty much,
peak.
yeah, that was the peak of this Met team. You thought this Met team would either win a division or just be a wild card team. They would be in the playoffs altogether. They had a 96% chance of making the playoffs at that moment. This It's hard to believe that this team has had three separate 7-game losing streaks and an 8-game losing streak that pretty much allowed the entire National League field, who were sellers in the trade deadline, to be back in the wild card race and could still possibly lift their way into the postseason and have a wild card matchup where they have an actual decent shot at winning. Because look at the because you look at the Dodgers as far as what their star rotation is, Yamamoto and maybe Otani, like in one of those 3 games. And then you look at the Mets, it's like, okay, you got two really good young rookie pitchers who are something to be really better than advertised, and everyone else is going to be relievers. I mean, hey, look, 3 games. If you could get away with missing matching, a pitching staff, it's in a short series. We literally just watched the Dodgers do it all last postseason. As far as just find a guy who can get you outs and just go from there. But yeah, this wild card race in the National League, it's just been unbelievable, and because of the Mets futility, but also the fact that 162 game season, you don't want to throw in a towel too soon because you never know. You go on a winning streak, you find yourself back in a pennant race, and we see it in the American League side where the Guardians are saying back in not one but 2 races, and the American League West is wide open.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. Like, if justice were served, the NL six seed would be gone in a pretty quick minute just because of the fact that 84 to 85 win teams
Yeah,
don't deserve to be rewarded. But I know where we are. And as I said before, no 3 seed has actually won in the wild card format in those 3 years, 22, 23, and 24. So it should be very interesting when we get that
at
far.
this point, the 6th seed, the wild card, should be treated like the 16th seed in the NCAA tournament. An afterthought.
It should be, but it's not going to be, and we know that. Okay. Moving on to another depressing Giants team, from the San Francisco Baseball Giants to the New York Football Giants. Here's a sad/great stat. 7 times in NFL history has a team won or tied a game in the final minute in regulation with a 60-plus yard field goal. And 4 of those times in the last decade have involved the New York Football Giants. Elliott, Godot, Joseph, and now Aubrey. Names that will ring in the back of my head in the last decade like no other could. Great. Just great. 40-37, Cowboys beat the Giants in OT. Giants 0-2. And guess what? A surprising 0-2 Chiefs come to town for Sunday Night Football this upcoming week as the Giants get to celebrate their home opener. All right. We're going to do an offensive and defensive takeaway to start here. And Jay, it was the best of times for Russell Wilson until that lob in the end. But the offensive takeaway is pretty good for week 2 for the old Giants offense.
Yeah. Just, for Giant fans that need some hope to hang on, there's that. But, just remember, the Giants went 0-2 in 2007 and wound up beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So, yes, it's a straw, but everybody needs a straw to grasp that, okay?
I feel better.
My offense, yes, and as Rabbi alluded to, my offensive takeaway is Russell Wilson. What a difference a week makes. In week 1, Russell Wilson looked like anything other than what he was expected to, to be, to the point that in the immediate aftermath of the Giants' 21-6 loss, head to the Commanders, Head coach Brian Dable was non-committal about Wilson's status QB1 for week 2, which of course stoked the fires of the faction of the fan base that wants rookie Jackson Start to take over right now. It was somewhat understandable considering Wilson's stat line: 17 of 37, 45.9% completion percentage, 168 yards, just 4.5 yards per attempt, no TDs, no interceptions, and just a 59.3 passer rating. Yes, the O-line was missing left tackle Andrew Thomas, although Wilson was only sacked twice. Amazing when you consider that Wilson is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL over the last 4 seasons. And he was only hit 6 times. But the fact that he bailed on some of the clean pockets he did have was concerning, as it led to 6 throwaways and 6 scrambles, some of which may not have been needed, as he was only pressured on 22% of his dropbacks. Then came this past week and a trip to Dallas. If week 1 Russell Wilson was the mild-mannered Dr. Jekyll, then week 2 he was very much the aggressive Mr. Hyde, or more appropriately, he was the Russell Wilson the Giants were hoping to have at the controls. 30 of 41, 72.3% completion percentage. Career high, 450 yards passing, 11 yards per attempt, with 3 touchdowns, 1 backbreaker of an interception in OT on a miscommunication with Malik Neighbors on what that route was supposed to be. Russ thinking it was going to be an inbreaker, Neighbors a go route. And Russell put up a 100. Despite that, Russell still put up 123 flat passer rating. In the first half alone, Wilson was 17 of 20, 85% completion percentage for 235 yards, 11.8 per attempt, a touchdown, and a 132.9 passer rating. The 235 passing yards was the most by a New York Giant in a half since Eli in 2018. Overall, the Giants had 5 pass plays of 25 yards or more, including 3 of more than 45 yards, as Wilson was in full on let Russ cook mode and put on a deep throw clinic. 7 of 11, 63.6% completion, 264 yards, 24 yards per attempt, 37.7 per completion, and 3 touchdowns, and that aforementioned backbreaker of an interception on deep balls. After week 1, where he was 27th among quarterbacks in air yards per attempt at 5.7 and 30th in deep pass percentage, he was number 1 in week 2 in air yards per attempt, 12.7, and deep pass percentage, as 11 of his 41 passes went 20 or more yards in the air. Look, we all know that the Cowboys secondary is suspect, and their pass rush is not as formidable without Micah Parsons. And though Wilson was sacked 3 times, he was under pressure on 28.9% of his dropbacks, both more than week 1. Despite the uptick in pressure, he had only 1 throwaway and only 1 scramble and only took 4 hits, so he was staying in the pocket and making plays downfield. Is this type of production sustainable? Highly unlikely, but while the immediate reaction was to the interception, there were plenty of other places to lay blame for the loss. If the Giants hadn't committed a whopping 14 penalties for 160 yards, including the aforementioned 4 by left tackle James Hudson on that opening drive alone, which resulted in the Giants having a 21-play, 110-yard drive that ended with a 38-yard field goal. Wilson had 95 passing yards on a drive that ended at the Dallas 20-yard line. That, and if they had any semblance of a running game, Cam Scadaboo, Tyrone Tracy, and Devin Singletary combined for just 64 yards on 17 carries, 3.8 a pop. The bulk of that from Scadaboo, 11 carries for 45 yards, 4.1 a pop. Most of that, though, was on a 24-yard run early in the fourth quarter. Overall, the Giants managed just 84 yards on the ground on 21 carries, 4 even per carry. Look, with Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, who showed everyone he can make plays beyond the line of scrimmage, and Darius Slayton, the Giants have playmakers on the perimeter and a quarterback in Wilson who can get them the ball. If they can decrease the penalties, especially the stupid ones, and increase the production in the run game, maybe, just maybe, the Giants offense will be able to put up some points.
21 penalties overall, 14 just accepted, including 3 on 1 play, and all of them didn't count because CD. And all of them, by the way, didn't count because CD Lamb taunted on that play, and so just noted that. And
that was the most hilarious offsetting penalties call I have ever heard in all the years I've watched football.
By the way, 4 teams this week won by committing double-digit penalties. Week 2, everybody. Week 2. Anthony, don't look up the name Shane Bowen on Twitter X. You're not going to get a lot of fanfare on that, including one tweet that I'm not going to talk about here because we don't.
People are mean.
I'm not going to. But
it's a
Anthony,
family show.
defensive takeaway and never see it again from week 2 for the Giants.
What are you saying? Yeah. Please take it away? Was that what
I'm saying please take everything away. Speaking of teams that can't take away, go ahead.
The Giants seem to be allergic to forcing turnovers. But Dexter Lawrence I thought would be a big part of this Giants front four that everyone had bragged about in the preseason. One problem: has anyone seen Dexter Lawrence? Because he hasn't really shown up the first 2 games. He has 0 sacks, has not registered a tackle for a loss or a hit on a quarterback. And when he's literally regarded as one of the better inside defensive players in the league, and you're not really much of a factor, it's no wonder that person can step up in the pocket because he's not there to collapse the pocket at the very least to help the pressure. But yeah, I mean, he sat out most of training camp, did not really participate in any of the preseason games, come off a torn pec injury from last year. But the one trouble thing that does bother me was a report on ESPN this week, where Dexter Lawrence is showing some signs of frustration. Maybe it's the losing, maybe it's the lack of production and not being much of a factor the first 2 games. But considering this is his 7th season and he's only been in the playoffs 1 time, you can kind of understand the frustration, the losing, probably starting to catch up to him a little bit. But the Giants defense, the front four has, outside of Brian Burns, has been kind of a disappointment. Brian Burns, 3 sacks in 2 games. He's held up his end. But obviously, Thibodeau has not been much of a factor. Abdul Carter's obviously going through the growing pains that comes with being a rookie in the National Football League. And they had a chance to maybe make a play and put the game away on that final drive after the Giants recaptured the lead with 25 seconds left. By the way, kids, if you're watching, on a loose football, do not stop playing. Always playing through the whistle. You never know if that's a fumble or incomplete pass, and it turned out to be a fumble. And fortunately for the Giants, because it was the final 2 minutes, the ball could not be advanced. So the Giants caught a break there. However, and I'm getting back, and I have to talk about Shane Bowen. When you have a kicker who can kick from 64 yards, maybe being 20, 25 yards off the line of scrimmage, it's not a good idea. I mean, you're in a cover 3. You probably should be up a little closer, knowing that they have to get anyone near midfield to give Brandon Arby an opportunity to attempt a field goal try. I was wondering, okay, Dak Prescott got to get the ball out quickly. Why not pressure him? Force him to get the ball off faster than he wants. Don't allow the receivers time to get downfield and make up the time. Whatever was going on, I thought even Greg Olsen was calling a game for Fox, even questioned why was the secondary playing so soft off of the line of scrimmage that way. I mean, they gave up. By the way, the front four has not been able to stop the run either. They've given up 355 yards rushing in the first 2 games of this season. And against the Cowboys, it was close to 6 yards a carry. And the last time I checked, Emmitt Smith and Ezekiel Elliott is not in the backfield for the Dallas Cowboys. So that just tells you a lot.
Javonte Williams has had a good start to the season, but it's still something that
there was a number of
just not this game, too.
And by the way, a number of missed tackles that led to big plays. Prescott, 38 of 52, 361 yards. This defense has a lot of work to do, and it's pretty clear that they're having a tough time with quarterbacks who can scramble as far as staying in rush lanes and keep them in the pocket. Because we saw it last week with Jay Daniels. We saw it this week, Dak Prescott. And it doesn't get any easier with a Patrick Mahomes whose eyes are always downfield, regardless if he's moving around. So the secondary is going to have to be on high alert. But the front four has got to live up to it. Dexter Lawrence the Giants need the All-Pro sexy Dexy that they had 2 years ago in the last each of the last few seasons before the pec injury last year, and he's also another All-Pro season before that happened. They need Dexter Lawrence to step up. They gotta have him to be able to collapse that pocket, but more importantly, force pressure up the middle and force the quarterback to have to step back where you do have those edge rushers coming all around the edge that could get to the quarterback a little easier. So this defense has a lot of crack to clear up. But that death taxes and the Giants losing to the Cowboys is becoming a certainty in life these days.
Dak Prescott hasn't lost to this team since his rookie year in 2016, by the way.
His first start, by the way.
And his second start, too. They lost the second start as well, by the way, and later that year as well. So, yeah, and I have to give a special non-shout out to the coaching. You mentioned the fact that leaving them in the defense that they were on those final plays, and Brian Schottenheimer saying, "Oh yeah, we have the second most automatic kicker in the league." Shout out Chris Boswell, you're number one still in my heart and in Jay's heart. But I think that the fact that you knew exactly what they were going to do, and I questioned it, but I'm like, oh yeah, you have Brandon Aubrey, he's going to kick a 64-yard field goal. The Cowboys were making sure that he didn't matter how long it was; it just had to matter going through. So points off of Shane Bowen for that. Points off to a team that you have to blame the coaching essentially when you get 21 penalties in the game, 14 accepted for their most in 25 years. And points off for the Jackson Dart drop in the fourth quarter of that game. Not needed, not wanted, and I understand they're going to have a round of plays for him. You don't do it in a shootout where the quarterback is cooking. Wrong time, wrong place. So far, this has been a year where Brian Daboll is on the hot seat. He has made every decision to get himself fired at the end of the year, along with this entire staff. All right. Now, I'm going to have to go against what Anthony just said because of scrambling quarterbacks. By the way, the funny thing is that week one was really a lot more on Austin Eckler doing the rushing attack, and Jaden Daniels had some of his stuff. But what quarterback leads the league in rushing this year? That's Patty Mahomes, my friends. Yes.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes has 123 yards rushing. He's on pace for 1,000 yards. This is not good. No. This is not what Patrick Mahomes is supposed to be. No. That has been their best offense this whole entire season when Patrick Mahomes has to use his legs. But Patrick Mahomes is not supposed to use his legs. The receiving attack is depleted. Rashee Rice has still 4 more games left in his suspension. Xavier Worthy pretty much got hurt right at the beginning of the first game. Thanks, Travis Kelce. And then immediately he's been iffy, and we'll possibly see him again this week. Hollywood Brown can only do so much. Travis Kelce has kind of been a shell of himself. He's not the guy who can dominate games anymore that you saw. But the rushing attack has no excuse. No. They believed Isaiah Pacheco, Rutgers graduate, would be the guy, and he had an injury last year, and they believed he would be the guy. He hasn't really done anything. He's had 47 yards on 15 carries in 2 games, and his longest run was 10 yards. Kareem Hunt, pretty much the exact same thing, 47 yards, 13 carries. His biggest run this year has been 11 yards. Mahomes has almost consistently ran for more than 10 yards pretty much the entire game. This is what they have to do. They need to, if they can't get anything going with Pacheco and Hunt, they might have to bring in their 7th-round pick, Rashard Smith. Again, 3.1 yards per carry for Pacheco, 3.6 yards for Hunt. The Giants are terrible against the run, as we've talked about. 177.5 yards per game in the first 2 games. Little better in week 2, but again, they still had a 30-yard counter run that seemed like anybody could easily stop that in that run by Javonte Williams. Now, Kansas City still has all of those Mahomes plays, as I mentioned. They still are the second highest in explosive rush rate and 10-plus rushing yards. But again, that's Mahomes. 9.5 yards per attempt this year, and 7 of those 9 explosive runs are Mahomes' runs. Now, when you have to have a rushing game because eventually your quarterback is going to need a little bit of a layoff. You see that a couple of times this year. You just saw it tonight when the Bills beat the Dolphins. They really had to rely more on James Cook than they had to do with Josh Allen most of the game. Chiefs are 17th in the NFL, 320.5 yards per game as an offense. They've only converted 34.6% of their third down attempts. That ranks 26th in the NFL. Giants are 27th. As I mentioned, you got to have a running game against the Giants. They've allowed 4 touchdowns already this year. They give up 6 yards per attempt, and that has to start with the combination of Hunt, Pacheco, even Brashard Smith, because if that doesn't work, then you become one-dimensional against a Giants team that, as much as Shane Bowen may try, can actually stop a one-dimensional team. It's shocking to see the possible three-time Super Bowl champs and the reigning AFC champs going 0-3 to start this season. But if the Giants can play their game and the Kansas City Chiefs become a team that just doesn't have a clue what they're doing on the ground, that's quite possible. It's going to be very interesting to see on Sunday. I don't think the Chiefs are dead, but they have definitely flatlined a little bit to start this season.
You flatline and dead is pretty much the same thing, Rabbi. So
I wouldn't say flatline. I would say they're in and out of consciousness. It's a little bit better.
Right.
They're on life support.
I wouldn't even say they're on life support. I still think they can make the playoffs easily, but I do think that there are legitimate concerns that I think we've said. I think a lot of people didn't see right out of the bat in that Chargers game, just because of how fun it was, the pomp and circumstance of that game being in Mexico City. But you saw that team needs more weapons.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, to me, the medical status for them would be critical but stable. I don't know. I mean, look, in this day and age, especially with the lack of preseason games and the lack of frontline players playing in preseason games, we all know that basically the month of September is where teams work the kinks out, right? Because it's the first real consistent reps the ones are getting every single practice in every single game. There are going to, some teams are going to have better situations based on matchups, personnel groupings, injuries, right? So we know that the Chiefs are not 100%. They don't have, their cupboard is not fully stocked yet. I want to see what happens when it is. But the question becomes, by the time it is fully stocked, have they fallen too far back to be able to actually do something with it?
They're doing intensive care, pretty much.
Yeah, they're in the ICU. Like I said, critical but stable.
They have the Ravens. They have the Ravens week 4. So if they don't win this week, then you might see a feeding tube coming out sooner or later for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be very interesting to see. All right. Just like Charles Dickens said, it was the worst of times. It was the more shittier of times. That is in the movie A Tale of Two Shitties. The New York Jets, following an inspiring week 1 loss, had an uninspiring week 2 loss against the Bills by the score of 30-10. Score not indicated of how much of a blow it actually was. That loss also gave Jets quarterback Justin Fields a concussion, one that has made him not clear protocol, and we will see career backup Tyrod Taylor. I'm surprised he's out of those Progressive commercials in any way, shape, or form. Fields only had 56 yards passing while not concussed. That's impressive. Mm-hmm. Now with the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, by the way, have started 2-0 for the last 4 consecutive years, hosting the Jets on Sunday afternoon, there's a lot to dissect here, Jets. Jay, we're going to say it again. What a difference a week makes at the quarterback position. Just not in the same way as we did for Russ.
No. And ironically enough, Tyrod Taylor's been replaced as the backup quarterback in those commercials by a guy who I don't even know if he's still in the league, Tommy DeVito. Go figure.
He's with the Patriots.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So, as Rabbi alluded to, Jets offensive takeaway follows the same theme as my Giants offensive takeaway, but in reverse. In week 1, Justin Fields had one of the best performances of his career, 16 of 22, 72.7% completion percentage, 218 yards, 9.9 yards per attempt, a touchdown, no picks, 119.1 passer rating. That was only the sixth time in his career he's had a single game passer rating above 110. First time since October 1st of 2023. We had a career high at 132.7 passer rating while wearing a Bears uniform in a 31-28 loss to Denver. He added 48 yards on the ground on 12 carries, 4 yards a pop, and 2 rushing touchdowns. He was sacked just once, had 1 throwaway, 1 bad throw, and a bad throw percentage of 4.8. He did all of this against the supposedly vaunted Pittsburgh Steelers defense and was not the reason the Jets ended up falling to the Steelers at the end, 34-32. The optimism was very high at MetLife in the aftermath. All the concerns about what Fields did not do in the passing game during the exhibition games and joint practices was forgotten. The fans were thinking that new offensive coordinator Tanner Eggstrand had done what coaching staffs in Chicago and Pittsburgh couldn't. Turn Justin Fields into at least a serviceable QB1 in an offense designed to put him in the best position to succeed. And then the Buffalo Bills came to town, fresh off their epic comeback win over the Ravens in Week 1 on Sunday Night Football. And then, just like that, the Jets were the just end the season Jets again, to the chagrin of Gangrene. And all the concerns about Fields' limitations as a passer were put on display for all the NFL to see. And he had what was arguably the worst performance of his career. To say that Fields regressed would be like saying the Grand Canyon is a hole in the ground. Before leaving the game in the fourth quarter after hitting his head on the turf on a sack by Joey Bosa, Fields was 3 for 11. That's a 27.3% completion percentage for just 27 yards, 2.5 yards per attempt. No TDs, no interceptions, which works out to a 39.6 passer rating, which is tied for the fourth worst single game passer rating in his career, and the 5th time he's had a single game passer rating under 40 in his career. He did have another solid day as a runner, 49 yards on 5 carries, 9.8 yards a carry, which led the team. And as much as Aaron Glenn wants to be a run-first offense, Fields needs to be at the very least as serviceable as he was when he went 4-2 as the Steelers starter in the first 6 games of last season. He was anything but last Sunday. Only one of his 3 completions went to a wide receiver, 18 yards to his college teammate Garrett Wilson near the end of the first quarter, and that completion accounted for 2/3 of his total passing yards. It was also the longest pass play all game for the Jets. The 3 completions and 27 yards were the fewest completions and passing yards of his career in a game that he started. All of this is beyond bad, but here's the stat that says it all. Fields' EPA per dropback was minus 1.01. For those who aren't next-gen stat folk, EPA is expected points added, which in this instance means every time Fields dropped back to pass, the Jets lost 1.01 points off their predicted point total for that drop back. As a former quarterback, I never want to see one get hurt, but the concussion that Fields suffered on that Bosa sack, which will force him to miss Sunday's game in Tampa Bay, may give him the opportunity to reset while he rests and recovers. So, with Fields out, as Rabbi noted, that means 36-year-old, 15-year veteran backup Tyrod Taylor will be at the controls. Taylor went 7 for 11, 63.6% completion percentage in relief of Fields, 56 yards, just 5.1 an attempt, which ironically enough is double what Fields' was. 1 touchdown, no picks, and a 106.6 passer rating. In theory, there likely won't be too much difference in the game plan with Aaron Glenn sticking with his run-first philosophy, but while Fields was discouraged from improvising, take what the defense gives you was the consistent message. Taylor doesn't play that way, and with his experience, the Jets don't need to keep him on the same tight leash. He isn't the athlete and runner that Fields is, but he's demonstrably a better passer, especially with the deep ball, so it'll be interesting to see how many of those types of passes Engstrom schemes up. The last time Taylor got any significant playing time was in 2023 when he started 5 games for the Jets. Per Pro Football Focus, he had enough big-time throws in those 5 games to finish among the NFL leaders. He had the highest percentage of big-time throws, 8.9%, among all quarterbacks with at least 150 dropbacks. Among quarterbacks with at least 20 deep attempts, that's throws of 20-plus air yards, Taylor's 15% was the 3rd highest percentage, and he converted 11 of his 27 deep throws. Taylor's propensity to hold the ball too long is the downside of the way he plays, as it sometimes leads to big hits, and more often than not, those hits land him on the injured list. Well, the Jets may not have a choice but to let Taylor try and air it out as much as possible, as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers allow the fifth least rushing yards per game, 76.5, yards per carry, 3.3, and are eighth in defensive EPA per rush, 0.08. Not good numbers for a team looking to establish themselves on the ground. Yes, the Jets are a top 10 team in rushing yards per game, but their 141 per game average is built on a 182 yard performance against the Steelers, followed by a 100-yard performance against the Bills. Breece Hall and Braylon Allen will need to step up. The pundits will say that if the Jets can keep it close, they'll have a chance. But considering who's playing quarterback for the home team, I'm not sure even keeping it close will be enough.
Well, that would have been a good setup if I was going next. I'm not. Anthony is going next, so we'll talk about that with the defensive side of the ball. Not good, and considering how the Steelers played against Seattle, now we kind of know if it's an outlier, it may just be a trend.
Yeah, but totally off topic, but these folks on the WNBA.
They've been very good. They've been insanely good.
Yeah, Seattle and Vegas is going out to the wire as we speak. But
shout out to Indiana for getting their first playoff series victory since 2016.
Yes, the walking match loomed at this point. 6 players on IR, including Caitlin Clark, and managed to go into Atlanta and win that series. But get back to the topic at hand. It's the Jets' lack of defense. Brandon Stevens is a player that the Jets signed for a 3-year, $36 million deal and $23 million guarantee to replace DJ Reed, who they lost via free agency. And there's a reason why the Ravens would want to happen to see him leave. I looked up his numbers from last season. He allowed almost 1,000 yards receiving when he was targeted by opposing quarterbacks, and between inability to play the ball and not being in the right spot, you can kind of see why. But Week 1, he allowed 5 catches for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns when the ball was thrown in his direction. And in Week 2, now it's shaky in the past, there was one egregious boneheaded play he made, and I have to call this one out. On James Cook touchdown run, he takes a really bad angle. Not only does he take the bad angle, but he kind of quits on a play as well. So he pulled a double whammy on that play. And the Jets defense was pretty much, as a whole, has been gashed for 224 yards against Buffalo. Cook by himself ran for 132 yards on the ground. And a lot of things as well. While they held the most damage that the Jets did defensively was bloody Josh Allen busted his nose. But outside of that, they didn't really do a whole lot. They weren't able to limit the passing yards from the previous week down to 154. But there was a complaint about this cover 1 defense that they're playing the first 2 games that has been less than imaginative, that's become a little predictable. As it might have shown in these first 2 games. And now you got a Tampa Bay Buccaneer team that has been really good as far as the passing game. And Rabbi, you're going to talk about Baker Mayfield in a moment. I don't. You always know with a new coach and coaching staff that there's going to be adjustments and growing pains. And right now, I don't know what the identity of this Jets defense is. I mean, are they a team that relies on stopping the pass because they have a guy like Sauce Gardner that could be a shutdown corner? Are they a team that would rely on stopping the run and going after the quarterback? It just seems like this team right now doesn't have a defensive identity. It's starting to show in these first 2 games, and the season's not going to get the schedule's not going to get any better. They're going to have to figure something out. What is the strengths? And right now, I don't think Aaron Glenn and company has an idea of what the strength of this Jets defense is. Is it the secondary? Is it the front 7? either way, the first two games it's been two games that if you're a defensive coordinator, those are games you want to throw out the window almost immediately because one week you're lit up by Aaron Rodgers, the next week James Cook and the Bills running game pretty much have their way with you. Uh, I said that day what's going to happen in week three if things get off to a bad start. Where a Tampa team that's playing, like Rabbi said, 2-0 start for the fourth straight year, uh, and playing on a high right now.
Okay, so as Jay mentioned, I'm going to talk about the quarterback. Now, Florida has some bad quarterbacks right now, college and pros. Pro Tua Tagovailoa does not look like the same quarterback that he's been in the last few years. And don't even get a Gator fan started on DJ Lagway as an LSU fan. Thank you for the 5 interceptions over the weekend. I greatly appreciate it. You could also talk about Florida State having Thomas Castellanos, who's having a great year so far. And you can talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers having good old Baker Mayfield. Wait, what? Baker Mayfield is one of the top quarterbacks in the league? Oh, he sure is. Now, just take a look at these two stats because one of the things he's done is brought his teams back from down in games against Atlanta and Houston with fourth quarter comebacks. In the modern era, there's the Tampa Bay on Monday became the first team since the 1979 Cleveland Browns to start a season 2-0 despite trailing with 1 minute to go in the fourth quarter of both games.
Huh.
Baker himself in consecutive games became only the second person to do this. Lead a game-winning touchdown that began with under 2:30 left in regulation in 2 games in a row. Last person to do that was Brett Favre back in 1996. So what Baker Mayfield has done is something that we didn't see when he was in Cleveland. He has been, as Jay has talked about, and he will talk about in the final segment, it's not about what you are sometimes, it's about what system you go into. And Tampa Bay's system, whether it be what former offensive coordinator Liam Cohen did this year, or his predecessor, or his successor. This team, he works with this team, and he works really well. Just having the weapons that he doesn't even have Chris Godwin right now. He has Emeka Egbuka, who has 3 touchdowns already this year. You obviously have Mike Evans, who is one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league. None of the stats are really good so far. Evans only has 100 yards. Egbuka has a lot of catches, but only 96 yards. But the guys know how to make plays late. And that's what Baker Mayfield does. And I think that's one of the things that's really exciting about him. And he is a leader, basically saying we're always in the fight. We expect to win any time. And just look at some of the plays that he had in that win against the Bucks. 4th and 2 from their own 32 on 4th and 10, I'm sorry, on their own 32. Baker, who was, as I mentioned to Anthony on text, damaged so much during the game that he didn't need an ice bath after the game. He needed to go into the refrigerator for a night to get past his injuries.
Wow.
Scrambled with the ball like he was Patrick Mahomes getting a 15-yard touchdown, getting 15 yards. Baker Mayfield leads the league with 74 touchdown passes since arriving in Tampa Bay. He knows what to do in all of these situations. This is a story that has been very interesting, just seeing the way he got cut from Cleveland. And boy, does Cleveland regret doing what they do now, seeing what Baker has become. He bouncing around in Carolina, joining the Rams for the last 4 weeks of 2022, getting that touchdown, coming to Tampa Bay and doing what he's done, and now his 3rd year at the helm. He's going to be there for even longer. He got a 3-year, $100 million contract to be there until at least next year. So what Baker Mayfield is going to do against the Jets is going to be very interesting. As Jay said, if the Jets keep it close, Baker Mayfield is there to basically rip your heart out at the end of the game because he has the awareness to do this in late game situations. I'm very impressed by this Tampa Bay team. Not spectacular, but one thing that I'm going to talk about, I'll talk about in the next segment, is the teams with the most weapons out there. You need a good general to be the one that shoots you into these. You need to be a good general to lead you into battle and to get you over the hump in some of these games. And Baker does that, and does that more consistently right now than we've ever imagined. All right. Moving on to our last segment of the night. Let's go around the National Football League. 0-2 teams. Our locals, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, now 0-3, the Browns, the Texans, the Titans, the Bears, the Panthers, and the Saints. Not sure if anyone thinks these teams being 0-2 are breaking news outside of one of them. Maybe the Texans as well, but you know. Joining the Bucs at 2-0 or undefeated are the Cardinals, the Rams, the Bills now 3-0, the Chargers, and the Bengals, who I don't think they're going to be popping champagne that they finally started 2-0 to start a season now with the Joe Burrow turf toe injury. We're going to show some takeaways from the first 1/9 of the NFL season. By the way, I did mention 3 teams who were on that undefeated list because we're going to talk about 3 of them in this segment. Jay is going to talk about the men currently holding down the fort for 2 of those 3 teams. And what a difference a change of scenery makes, Jay.
Yeah. Can I tell you? It's funny how I came up with the name for this angle, and I'm calling it Keeping Up with the Joneses, the Quarterback Reclamation Project edition. And now I've seen that be used elsewhere by people who cover the NFL. So over the last few years, we've seen several veteran quarterbacks who look to be headed on the path to bust alley resurrect their careers. Geno Smith, the aforementioned Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold are the most recent reclamation projects. This season, a couple of former first-round picks with the same last name, hence the theme of my angle. Each is on his 3rd team and could be staring down the teams that drafted them and then cut them loose while How You Like Me Now by Kool Moe Dee plays in the background. Let's start with Mac Jones, who is finally with the team that should have drafted him in the first place back in 2021. Y'all will remember I had Kyle Shanahan taking the former Alabama quarterback as a lead pipe lock, as he checked all the boxes of what Shanahan looks for in a quarterback. We were all shocked when the Niners took Trey Lance, but it's all come first circle, and Jones is where he belongs. And if last Sunday was any indication, the 49ers offense won't miss a beat, even if Brock Purdy has to miss Sunday's divisional game against the Cardinals. That fact was borne out by Shanahan calling a game that featured 39 passes by Jones. That's just how much Shanahan trusts him. Purdy only had 1 game last season with 40 attempts. Now, Jones got off to a shaky start. 0 for his first 4, sailing passes over his receivers' heads, largely due to some nerves. But then he settled down, and he absolutely shredded the Saints defense, ultimately completing 26 of those 39 passes, 66.7%, for 279 yards, 7.2 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, and 113.1 passer rating in the Niners' 26-21 win over New Orleans. Jones did all this with an offense that came into the game minus tight end George Kittle and wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, and then lost fullback Kyle Juszczyk to a concussion during the game. None of that seemed to faze Jones, and once he settled down, he was in complete command of the offense, highlighted by a 9-play, 77-yard drive that with 1:10 remaining in the first half, ended with a 7-yard touchdown pass to running back Christian McCaffrey. And despite being down 3 of their key playmakers, the 49ers were effective on 3rd down, converting 8 of 15, 53.3%, especially with Jones throwing, as he went 7 of 12, 58.3% completion for 121 yards, 10.1 per attempt, and all 3 of his touchdown passes on 3rd down. Jones was very much the point guard, completing 3 or more passes to 5 different receivers, including his former New England Patriots teammate Kendrick Bourne, who the 49ers signed just last week and who Jones helped learn the playbook with sessions after hours at the 49ers facility. As of this evening, Purdy's status is still listed as day-to-day, though he has increased his activity in practice each day this week. He may be a game-time decision, but if he has to miss another day, he knows his offense is in good hands with Mac Jones. Now for the other Jones, Daniel, the number 6 pick from 2019, who went 24-44-1 in 6 seasons as the Giants' starting quarterback. We all had a front row seat to that. Jones asked for and was granted his release after the Giants benched him last season. He caught on with the Vikings, but he knew he wouldn't have a chance to start with the J.J. McCarthy era about to commence in 2025. So he went to Indianapolis and wound up beating out former first-round pick Anthony Richardson, who has been erratic and injury-prone, playing just 15 games in his first 2 seasons. Y'all know I was a big DJ fan. He was a class act his entire time with the Giants. And while a lot of his struggles at MetLife were of his own doing, Brian Daboll did not do him any favors. If any quarterback was in dire need of a change of scenery, it was Daniel Jones. According to those who cover the Colts, Jones didn't even have a wow training camp or preseason. The prevailing theory is that he won the QB1 job because, as one NFL team exec put it before the season started, in his assessment of the change from Richardson to Jones, quote, Coach Shane Steichen is probably like, dude, just give me a guy who's not going to give me the one bad play that's going to blow up the drive and just get me on schedule so I can keep dialing it up. Well, I think it can safely be said that Jones has done a wee bit more than simply keep the Colts offense on schedule so far this season. The case can be made that Danny Dimes is back. 2 weeks in, 45 of 69, 71.4% completion. 588 yards, 9.3 per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, 0 fumbles, and a 111.1 passer rating, plus 3 rushing touchdowns. Leads all quarterbacks in EPA. That 111 passer rating is 6th best. Those 588 passing yards, 2nd best, despite the fact that he is 16th in attempts and 18th in dropbacks. He's 10th in air yards per attempt, 8.4, and more than 20% of his completions have been on the intermediate or deep passes. Remember in New York where they barely let him throw past the line of scrimmage? More importantly, what has and what's jumped out at me has been his performance when he's been under pressure. He's been blitzed 44 times so far through the first 2 weeks, 16 more than the next closest quarterback. And he's responded by throwing for 398 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, and an NFL-leading plus 17 EPA when blitzed. He's one of only 4 quarterbacks with a positive EPA when under pressure. The other 3, you might know the names: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Baker Mayfield. Now, we know Jones struggled mightily in third down situations with the Giants last season. That hasn't been the case so far this season with the Colts. Then again, they've largely avoided third down situations. 50% of Jones's first down pass attempts have resulted in new first downs. The NFL average, 27%. The last time the Colts were 2-0, 2009 with Peyton Manning at quarterback. Daniel Jones was 12. But through these first 2 weeks, he's done some things that are very Peyton-esque. He's the first Colts quarterback with 5 total touchdowns and 0 turnovers since Manning in 2010. And in team history, only Manning and Johnny Unitas have more passing yards in the first 2 weeks of the year than the 588 Jones has put up. In the Colts' week 2 win over the Broncos, Jones went 23 of 34, 67.6% completion, 316 yards, 9.3 per attempt, including a career best 236 passing yards in the first half, en route to his first 300-yard passing game since 2023, along with 1 touchdown in the air, 1 touchdown on the ground, and a 107 flat passer rating. The offense is succeeding because of him, not in spite of him, which was the narrative for most of his time with the Giants. The Colts are the first team in NFL history to score on their first 10 possessions to open a season. They scored on all 7 of their possessions in week 1, something no other team has done since at least 1978. That's as far back as the data goes. And they are the first team in the Super Bowl era to not punt in either of their first 2 games of the season. Can he keep this level of play up for the season? Who knows? We kept asking that question of Sam Darnold last season. The answer was yes until the very end. That being said, Jones has a quality offensive line in front of him, something he never had in New York. A great running game led by Jonathan Taylor, a rising star and rookie tight end Tyler Warren, who has already built some great chemistry with Jones, and he has a solid defense. Head coach Shane Steichen has done a great job of calling plays, and Jones has executed those plays at a high level. He doesn't have to carry the offense like Peyton did. He just needs to play point guard and get the ball into the hands of his playmaker. Look, at some point, Jones is going to turn the ball over, and probably in a way that resurrects some of his worst giveaways as a Giant. But he gives the Colts a better chance to be a factor in a wide-open AFC South. His limitations can be worked around by Steichen's play calling. Richardson did not give the Colts that option. I'm rooting for Daniel Jones to be this year's Sam Darnold. A class act like him deserves a better second act.
I think Jim Bob Cooter, offensive coordinator, and also my favorite name for an offensive coordinator in the NFL, is probably very happy to have someone who can actually get his playbook and actually show it into an offense, like I said. And I think another name that has to be said, you mentioned it before, Jonathan Taylor is an ageless wonder,
Oh
and
my God.
once you give Daniel Jones a good back again, Saquon
Yeah.
Barkley on line one, you can learn that Daniel Jones is a little more comfortable out there. We'll see what the rest of the season goes, but it seems like very good things right now.
Yep.
Anthony, give me your takeaway from the first 2 weeks of the season.
Well, we talked about Tampa Bay earlier in the show, and obviously the Jets opponents. I looked at the Tampa Bay's 2-0 start, and shout out to the official website. They gave me by the numbers, and Jay, I know you are the numbers guy here, so I'm going to do my best Jay
Lay it on
Kaplan
me.
impersonation
Lay it
here.
on me.
All right, let me follow up the reading glasses. All right, here's the first one. The only team since the NFL and AFL merger in 1970 to win their opening two games by scoring winning touchdowns in the final 60 seconds. Their first win in the city of Houston. They have been 0-4 previously in games against the Texans in their
Wow.
franchise history. Their fifth straight season of 2-0, four of them under head coach Todd Bowles. By the way,
Wow.
that's a name I know Jet fans are like, you know what? Maybe they held on to him and give him a little more time to work things out. Rashawn White scored on a 2-yard touchdown with 6 seconds left in regulation. In week one, Tampa Bay scored from Baker to Emeka Ibuka on a 24-yard touchdown pass with 10 seconds left. According to Stat Perform, Tampa Bay first team since 1999, Miami Dolphins, to score a game-winning triumph in the final minute of the fourth quarter in two consecutive road games. Okay, here's another one. Ibuka said we talked about him at Dawson on this show from Ohio State. Leads the league. He's actually the first Buccaneer to score 3 touchdown passes over the course of his first 2 NFL games. Mayfield himself 5 touchdown passes through the Bucs' first 2 games to tie for second in the NFL in that category. Since 2023, he has an NFL high 74 touchdown passes. His second touchdown pass this past Monday night actually moved him past Doug Williams into 5th place in team history in that category.
Wow.
36 starts for Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield has thrown multiple touchdown passes 24 times. That is the third most multi-touchdown passing games in team history behind Jameis Winston and Tom Brady. Okay, Mayfield also surpassed 25,000 the 25,000 yard mark in passing last Monday night with 215. That gives him 25,214 yards since he was drafted first overall by the Cleveland Browns in 2018. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers defense held the Texans to 84 yards on 19 carries rushing. After 2 weeks, the Buccaneers ranked 6th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game, 76.5, and 4th in yards allowed per game, 3.3. Since head coach Todd Bowles first arrived as the defensive coordinator in 2019, the team has held its opponents under 100 yards in 64 games, the most in the NFL during that time span. But the Buccaneers kind of get overlooked because they're in the NFC South. We mentioned with the Colts and the other Southern Division in the AFC. We kind of overlook the Southern Division in both conferences, but Tampa Bay has kind of become a model of consistency. And the question was, when Tom Brady retired, who was going to be that quarterback? And Baker Mayfield, obviously getting basically jilted at the altar by the Cleveland Browns, has found a new home. Maybe the signs were there. We saw that playoff game 2 years ago when he almost single-handedly won that game in Detroit. But Baker Mayfield has had a career resurgence there. The Buccaneers defense is just as good as ever. And we have to start talking about the Buccaneers and maybe being a serious contender coming out of the NFC. I mean, they've been consistent. They've been 2-0 for the last 5 years. They could possibly be 3-0 depending on what the hell the Jets do leading up to this game.
I'd bet on 3-0.
No, I'm trying to give it.
I'd bet on 3-0.
My nephew's a Jet fan. He's watching this show. I'm trying to give him a slimmer hope, okay?
Your nephew, I would bet on them being 3-0, and I think if he's a self-respecting Jet fan, he would learn that his team should be losing on Sunday.
Okay, Dave, if you're watching, that is not me. That is my colleague saying this.
Yep.
But yes, the Buccaneers. By the way, the Buccaneers right now, what they've been able to do the last few years, but obviously, just how good they've been and what they're building up to. Just I don't know how much we can overlook this team. I mean, they were in a division that's been winnable, and they've kind of dominated the last few years. But it's a matter of can they take that next step and be up there with the likes of Philadelphia and the likes of uh the Rams, who are still there. Um, and Detroit and Washington, the preseason prognosticators uh picks that we were seeing that could come out of the NFC. And it's gonna be and the Bucks has been a fun team to watch because it's never a dull moment, and they've shown that they're never really out of games,
Nope.
regardless of that. And we saw that with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland and his ability to kind of bring teams back from the dead. And to be able to do that going down to Tampa Bay and getting this fresh start, I think, like I said, I was a Baker fan when he was in college, and to see him metaphorically and physically plant his flag down in Tampa Bay, Florida, and make his mark, it's been a really good story.
Yeah.
He knows how to plant his flag in stadiums physically all the time because he did that when he was with Oklahoma. So he might as well be doing that also.
They should have made a mini game. They should have made like a mobile game out of that, like where you just randomly pick a city and Baker Mayfield just
Mayfield revs that flag
yeah.
right into your logo, just like T.O. celebrated down the star back in the day. Okay. You mentioned Detroit and Washington, and that's kind of funny because there's a team out there that's beaten Detroit and Washington who made it to the Elite Eight last year, Washington making it to the Final Four of the NFL playoffs, and a team that took pretty much care of business right out of the gate. My takeaway is if you're going on what happened in the first 2 weeks, the best team in the NFL is the Green Bay Packers. Full stop. Nothing really done. Now, of course, you play your first two games at home. You have a lot of momentum and juice coming up at home. It's completely understandable. But I think this is sustainable because of what you have on both sides of the ball for Green Bay. Let's start about the quarterback first, Jordan Love. You probably heard the stat many times if you're watching this show, but here's the stat. Love is 27 this year, and all of his three predecessors out there, his three main predecessors, Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers, all won Super Bowls in their age 27 season. And if they did that, Jordan Love's doing a great case to possibly be an MVP right now. He's actually like the third pick right now. He went from plus 1,400 to plus 700 in just a few weeks, and he's got a cupboard full of stars. We'll talk about that in a moment. But right now, third in NFL in yards per passing attempt. That's 9.1. Fourth in passer rating, 120. He has 4 touchdowns through 2 games, hasn't turned the ball over, and once has only been sacked twice, which is interesting because Love had double-digit interceptions in his first year as a starter. So Love is holding on to the ball. Now, it helps that Jordan Love has a just Wheel of Fortune like wide receiver crew that you can go to. You got Tucker Kraft, who has had 140 yards and just on 11 targets, 8 receptions in just 2 games. Romeo Dobbs, who's been a pretty constant person out there. Dontavian Wicks out there. Malik Heath has had a catch or 2. Luke Musgrave, their tight end. You need 2 tight ends these days in a lot of offenses. He's been really good. Matthew Golden's caught 4 passes, the rookie from Texas. Now, Jaden Reed, unfortunately, had a collarbone injury that's going to keep him out indefinitely, but they're getting Christian Watson back from his injury, so it's just like plug and play. And you also have one of the best backs in the NFL, Josh Jacobs, for all the stuff that Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry did last year, going to their new teams. We kind of forget that Josh Jacobs is just a guy who's been carrying the ball. He hasn't done it for the same yardage as those two have done in their respective new homes, but Jacobs has now scored a touchdown in the last 10 games that this team has played, regular season and postseason. Wow. So overall, it's just been a team that has had weapons, and Jordan Love has made the most of their weapons. And if he can keep the ball on his team, if he can stop from throwing interceptions, I have a feeling that Jordan Love will be an MVP candidate because this could be the best version of Jordan Love that we've seen. I mean, he had the 3 years of being benched or watching from the bench, this is one of the best keys of only play your starter when he's ready. And he is by far ready now. But you need both sides of the ball. And the other side of the ball is the defense. And we all know that the Green Bay Packers got Micah Parsons back to Thursday before the regular season started. And, well, you have that. And you have a team that is just they're beasts out there. Like this is insane. There have been 13 players on this team that have played 50 snaps already this year on defense, which is almost unheard of. This team has just been getting to the ball quickly. Defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley has made sure that he's had the right plays, the right people on there, and he is just there's tangible speed out there that right now Detroit was just useless out there in week 1, and then Jaden Daniels in week 2, who could really do a good job in getting pressure. He didn't have a single first down in week 2, and he possibly won't be able to play because of what he did, because of the hurting that he had at Green Bay on Sunday because of that. Now, all in all, Green Bay's fast. Green Bay has speed. Green Bay has explosive athleticism. They're right now, like I said before, 2 weeks in. I'm going to have an overreaction about another team probably on our next show. So just keep tape of everything of this season. But how can you say right now that, I mean, obviously Buffalo's had a really good start to the season with the comeback win over Baltimore. They look like a complete team themselves. But I really think just the mesh of defense and offensive skills right now, Green Bay is the team that looks honestly head and shoulders above everyone else, at least to start the season.
Mm-hmm. That division was fun last year. It's going to be fun again this year.
Yeah. By the way, Packer fans, if you want to send a thank you basket to Jerry Jones for Michael Parsons,
there's going to be many in the future.
Yeah, I can recommend a good discount from the Swiss Colony. You can send them a dozen sorted cheeses, some meats, throwing some, some pigs in a blanket. Texans they love the barbecue. You just go ham with that. I mean, if you want to do it,
I will say this about
Holidays not around the corner soon. By the way, 100 days away.
Remember to get your promo code. But I will say this about Dallas. And I'm going to be the nice person here. Their offense actually looks pretty good to start the season. Every time I watch them, I forget, oh, yeah, this Prescott guy actually learns about what he does.
He can actually play quarterback a little bit.
Not only can he actually play quarterback, he actually learns and actually improves on his stuff. He just has to stay healthy. So we'll see. Be a very interesting rest of September as we head into the dog days of fall. For Jay Kaplan and Steven Rabinowitz, that's me. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, I'm Steven Rabinowitz. Available. Yeah, I think I am, and I'm available at Pumpkin Spice for the fall season. So come get me with whipped cream and anything you want at Starbucks. Anyway, as we fall into autumn, we fall onto 2 of our social media sites. As long as we still have social media until it gets taken over by
AI. Keep this rolling.
I was going to say totalitarianism, not AI, but authoritarianism is what I meant to say. Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines live shows, YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines on demand. Jay, go ahead.
Our Twitter handle is at ONTH Sportslines, where you'll find a link to each new show like today's, along with tidbits and nuggets from the world of sports that we think are worth your time to check out. In the wake of Robert Redford's passing earlier this week, and as a lifelong member of the How Can You Not Be Romantic About Baseball Club, I rewatched The Natural, which came out in 1984. I know there are folk who are not fans because Hollywood changed the ending of the book where the hero becomes a traitor to the team in the game, but I prefer the cinematic version with its hero coming through in the clutch. And I agree with Rob Peterson of The Athletic on why Redford's portrayal of the main character and the film itself still resonates with sports fans like me. I posted a link to Peterson's story on Peterson's piece on our Twitter page. Both the story and the film are worth your time to check out. Rest in peace, Roy Hobbs.
By the way, shout out to SNY for playing The Natural music on one of the home runs last night. I'll always love how they put in their like little pieces out there. It's like a modern broadcast, and the Yankees are the antiquated broadcast, I guess. Anyway, see you in 7 days for another edition of On the Sports Lines. Good night.
Night,
Not
everybody.
everyone.